One of the things that I love about mountain biking is the adventure and the unknown, and sometimes that means rides that don't go as well as you would like them to. So I had a ride recently up in the North Georgia mountains when I was riding the Transition Sentinel, doing my comparison between that and a Specialized stump jumper, and I had 4 things happen on that ride that went wrong. The first thing was very, very minor, but it's annoying. I was coming down a pretty rocky descent on Stanley Gap, and the Garmin computer on my bike, I had an Edge 830 on it, and it was on the transition that really has handlebars that taper quite a bit. So from that stem, as they taper down, there's quite a sharp taper. And this is the second time this has happened. The edge just kind of worked its way down, and before I knew it, it was flying off the bike. So I ended up just putting it in my pocket for the rest of the ride. So the second thing that happened was on a descent soon after that is I actually had a crash, and I haven't crashed in a while. In fact, somebody in one of the comments on one of my videos said that he's not seen me crash on video. Well, I got this one on video. So here's the crash, and I'll tell you what happened. What did I hit, dude? Whoa. So I was really focusing on the logs that were built into the trail, and I didn't even pay attention to a tree root that was sticking up out of the ground. So the tree had fallen over, they had cut the roots, but there was a root sticking out, and my left pedal clipped it, and it was one of those crashes where I was on the ground before I even knew what happened. I mean, I'm up, riding, descending. Fortunately, I had slowed down to go over those logs, and the trail kind of flattened out right there. Didn't even see that root sticking out, and like I said, just clipped the pedal, went over, landed on my side. I actually landed on my elbow, my hip, and my knee, and it was one of those crashes where I was so thankful that I had pads on. So this is a lesson. Always wear your pads, kids, because you never know what's going to happen. This is a descent that I had ridden countless times, and I just happened to crash. Never crashed on that descent before, so I had my POC elbow pads on, and again, I'm so glad that I did, because I just had a little tender spot on my elbow that I landed on. I landed hard on my elbow. Oh, and on my head. So I had the Outdoor Master helmet on, and I actually dented it a little bit at the top, and I could really feel the MIPS working, so my head was just kind of sliding along the ground. That's the one thing I do remember. I'm riding, and the next thing I know, I could feel my head just kind of sliding on the ground, and I could really feel the helmet just moving slightly with the MIPS, and I'm really thankful for that. I did replace this helmet, so because of the little dents, you just never know. It's always best if you whack your head with a helmet to replace the helmet because the structural integrity may have been compromised. One good reason why it's good to have this really killer $65 helmet that I've reviewed before. I'll drop that in the description below if you haven't seen that, because I mean, replacing a $65 helmet is much less painful than replacing a $150 helmet. In fact, I ordered this helmet and it came like 2 days later. So when I got back from my trip, it was already at my house. So that was really cool. So the pads, so the knee pad I had on, and I had my elbow pads on, and again, I'm so glad that I did. The only lasting real injury from that was my hip. It's just kind of bruised and sore. In fact, my shoulders and neck were sore for a few days after that crash, but the elbow was fine. I mean, the pads made it from where it was just an inconvenience and I got up and kept riding, versus probably going to the ER and getting stitches in my elbow, which has happened before on one ride where I forgot my pads. I made a separate video about that, and that was kind of painful. So again, the pads made it from something that I got up and laughed about versus, like I said, going to the ER and getting some stitches. So that was the crash. The third thing that happened, I was coming down a descent and the bolt on my dropper post came loose Fortunately, the bolt didn't fly out of the clamp, so I was able to take the bolt out, put it in my pocket, and just keep it. However, I had ridden the stump jumper the day before, which has the swap box and the built-in little multi-tool. So I took my multi-tool out of my hydration pack to save weight. And when I rode the Sentinel the next day, totally forgot to put the multi-tool back in my hydration pack. You know, you carry a multi-tool for 100 rides and you don't need it. And then the one time that you need it, you don't have it. How does that happen? So I had no way of tightening that bolt of the dropper post, and I thought I was going to have to bail on my ride on the descent that I worked so hard for. And it actually was just able to flop around. Like, it didn't hit the frame, didn't hit the fork or my hand, the bars. It just kind of hung out there and flopped around with no problems. Now, every time I had to drop or raise the post, I had to stop and use two hands to get it to go up or down. But again, I was able to continue the ride, which was great. And the fourth thing that happened was I was coming down another descent and a rock flew up from my front tire, and I kind of caught it out of the corner of my eye, and it was probably about that big. So it was a pretty good sized rock. Hit my shin and it hurt. I got down to the bottom and there's blood just, pouring out of my shin, dripping onto my shoes and my sock. And that night I had a big goose egg on my shin that hurt a lot. I iced it. It was much better the next day. But, all those things, I was able to continue the ride. But, this is one of those rides, like, usually I'm well prepared. I don't ride above my limits. And so I usually have non-eventful rides, but sometimes you have those rides where something goes wrong, or in this case, 4 things went wrong on one ride. So I'm just sharing this story for all of you mountain bikers out there, because eventually we have rides that don't go according to plan, or you have a crash. I mean, crashes happen to all of us. Fortunately, this one was pretty benign. The video, it would have been much more dramatic if someone was riding behind me and caught it on video. But, you could see from that video, I was riding, and then like a split second later, I'm on the ground. But anyway, things happen, mountain biking. That's it for this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.